Let me be brutally honest with you. Most men don't realize that the moment they stop being taken for granted is the moment a woman actually starts missing them. And yet, here you are probably sitting there, thinking she'll always be there, thinking she'll never notice what she's losing. Wake up. Because that mindset is exactly why so many men lose the women they should have cherished. The truth is uncomfortable. And that's why I'm going to hit it head on. Women always notice absence before presence, and they always notice value before attention. But men, most of them, are completely blind to it. Here's the first controversial truth. If you're the type of man who bends over backwards, constantly chasing, always saying yes even when it doesn't serve you, she doesn't respect it. And deep down, she won't miss it either. That's right. Respect and scarcity, not constant availability, are what make a woman feel your absence. And no, this isn't some manipulative trick. It's biology and psychology rolled into one. When a man is taken for granted, he often doesn't realize he's the one giving away his own power piece by piece until one day she starts looking at him differently. But by then, it might already be too late. Let me break this down for you. Simple and easy. Women are wired to value what they can't fully control or always have. It's not a game, it's human nature. When a man becomes predictable, always available, and never stands firm in his self-respect, he begins to fade into the background of her life. And guess what? She doesn't even consciously notice it at first. She just feels the emptiness, a subtle void she doesn't know how to label. And this is where things get tricky, because men often misread her behavior during this phase. She might seem indifferent, distant, or even frustrated with you, but that's actually the beginning of her realizing your value. Controversial, right? Most men would think the exact opposite. Now, here's the second truth that stings. The way a man reacts to being taken for granted defines whether she misses him later or not. A man who crumbles, begs, or tries to win her back instantly lowers his perceived value. A man who stays composed, maintains his standards, and focuses on his own life creates an undeniable magnetic pull. It's that simple. Scarcity is not manipulation. It's the natural law of attraction in motion. And yes, women notice it. They notice it more than you'll ever imagine, even if they don't say it out loud. Think about it for a second. Have you ever noticed that sometimes when a woman starts ignoring you or doesn't answer the way she used to, it sparks her curiosity instead of her disinterest? That's exactly what's happening. She is beginning to feel the consequences of taking you for granted. She's starting to ask herself questions she never asked before. Why isn't he texting me like before? Why isn't he available all the time? Why do I feel a little unsettled when he's not around? And here's where most men fail. They panic, overcompensate, and destroy the very thing that could have made her realize your worth. This is where the controversy really hits. Men are trained socially and emotionally to give endlessly and expect nothing in return, while women are biologically and psychologically wired to value those who maintain their worth. When you understand this, you realize that being taken for granted is not about her being cruel. It's about you not asserting your value in the first place. And when you finally do, when you finally stop being the predictable, always available guy, she starts feeling the weight of your absence. But here's the part most men refuse to accept. It's not about punishing her. It's not about playing games. It's about reclaiming your energy, your attention, and your respect, and letting the natural laws of human psychology do the rest. When you do this, something incredible happens. She starts missing not just what you do for her, but who you are when you respect yourself. And that, my friend, is what turns regret into desire. By the end of this video, I'm going to show you exactly why women start missing the men they took for granted, and how most men unknowingly push themselves into invisibility in their relationships. You'll learn why scarcity, self-respect, and the way you handle your presence or absence changes the way she sees you forever. You'll understand the exact moments when her indifference starts turning into longing. And more importantly, you'll see why most men completely miss these signals until it's too late. So, buckle up. This isn't a lecture, it's a wake-up call. Because if you keep giving without boundaries, staying available without value, and bending to her whims without standing for yourself, you're not just being taken for granted, you're setting yourself up to be forgotten. And once that happens, no amount of apologies, gifts, or attention can fully reverse it. In the next sections, we're going to being taken for granted to being someone she actually notices, someone she starts longing for, and someone she realizes is not replaceable. In short, the first step in making a woman miss you is simple. Stop being endlessly available. Focus on your own life and honor your own time and energy. That shift in behavior, even subtly, triggers her psychology in ways men rarely understand. She begins to feel your absence before she consciously admits she misses you. And that, my friend, is the foundation of how women start realizing the value of the men they once overlooked. Let's be honest, this is the stage where most men completely fail to see what's happening. She doesn't wake up one day and suddenly start missing you for no reason. It happens gradually, often without her even realizing it herself. It starts with little moments, your words not always there to reassure her, your attention not automatically on her every whim, your energy directed toward your own life. And in that quiet absence, she begins to notice a void, a gap she didn't realize existed. Here's the controversial truth. Women often only recognize a man's value after they've lost a sense of his constant presence. Not when you're bending over backwards for them. Not when you're proving how much you care. When you are finally standing on your own, living your life with purpose, and refusing to let yourself be overlooked. Most men never get this because they confuse attention with affection, service with love, and availability with worth. You can relate to this without even thinking about it. Have you ever noticed that when you focus on your own goals, your own growth, and your own boundaries, the people around you, women included, start reacting differently? They begin to ask questions, notice your absence, or even feel unsettled when you are not giving them the same energy they once assumed would always be there. It's subtle, almost imperceptible, but the shift is real. That is exactly when a woman starts realizing she took you for granted. Another uncomfortable truth. Many men spend years giving everything, attention, effort, energy, without ever receiving the same in return. She may enjoy your company, may love the comfort you provide, may even feel safe with you. But if she never had to work to earn your respect or attention, she likely never truly valued it. And when you start showing that you have limits, boundaries, and standards, her subconscious begins to stir. She starts questioning her own behavior. Did I ever appreciate what I had? Did I ever notice his value before it became scarce? And let's face it, that realization doesn't happen overnight. It's slow, it's quiet, it's a nagging feeling that creeps in when she sees your absence in ways she can't fully explain. She might feel frustration at first, confusion, even denial, but deep down she starts recognizing the imbalance. She starts seeing that she didn't give you the attention, respect, or acknowledgement you deserved. That recognition is uncomfortable, even painful, because it's an admission that she undervalued someone who genuinely mattered in her life. Men often fail because they expect overt reactions, apologies, declarations of love, dramatic pleas. But that's not how female psychology works. Women process this differently. They internalize it first. They feel it in the quiet moments, in the gaps between your words, in the space left. When you stop constantly bending to their expectations, they begin to see you differently without a single confrontation or argument. It's the subtle, almost invisible acknowledgement of value. And it's far more powerful than any grand gesture. You can relate to this because you've probably felt it yourself in reverse. Maybe there was someone you didn't fully appreciate until they stopped being a part of your life in the same way. The same principle applies here, but it's often the man who must first step back and hold his own worth for her to see it. She won't miss the man who allows himself to be taken for granted indefinitely because human psychology resists valuing what seems limitless and endlessly available. Here's the tough, controversial truth. Women don't miss men who enable their complacency. They miss men who challenge them, respect themselves, and refuse to be invisible. The moment you start embodying these qualities, she begins to realize everything she ignored. And that realization is not about manipulation. It's about understanding the natural dynamics of human behavior, attraction, and respect. So, by the time this stage hits, she's quietly confronting her own feelings of loss and regret. She may not voice it, she may not act on it immediately, but internally, she's acknowledging a truth she may have avoided for a long time, that the man she once overlooked had value she didn't fully recognize. And that absence, subtle or otherwise, is now a reflection of her own choices. Understanding this stage is crucial for men. It's the point where respect, boundaries, and self-value become the most powerful tools in the dynamic. It's when a man stops giving automatically and starts living with intention, forcing her to confront her own perception of him. That's the exact moment a woman begins missing the man she once took for granted, not because of manipulation or games, but because you finally demanded to be seen for the value you always held. Here's a truth most men hate to hear. If you've been allowing yourself to be taken for granted, you've been partly responsible for the situation. It's harsh, but it's reality. Women don't randomly stop noticing a man. They notice when a man stops letting himself be undervalued. And most men don't get this because they're too busy trying to prove themselves, too busy chasing validation, or too afraid of losing her to actually stand their ground. Wake up. This is where you've been failing, and it's costing you more than you realize. You need to understand that women are wired to respond to strength, consistency, and self-respect, not arrogance, not games, not endless graveling. A woman starts missing a man the moment he stops bending to her expectations automatically and starts prioritizing himself. And here's the kicker. Men often mistake this for selfishness. They think that if they don't give her everything she wants at every moment, she will leave. The reality? Most women begin to feel a void and realize your worth when you finally stop overextending yourself. That void creates reflection, desire, and eventually a longing that never existed when you were fully available. Let's be real for a second. How many men do you know who compromise their own time, goals, and energy just to keep a woman happy? Probably too many. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Women notice this, but they don't respect it. They don't feel attraction because you are convenient. They feel attraction because you are valuable, independent, and firm in your standards. When you start asserting boundaries, taking time for yourself, and refusing to be overlooked, that's when she begins to wake up. That's when she begins to feel your absence in a way she didn't before. Now, this isn't about punishing her or being manipulative. It's about self-respect and awareness. Too many men confuse submission with love and approval with security. They bend over backwards to avoid conflict, to stay in her good graces, or to prove that they care. But when you do this consistently, she doesn't miss you. She doesn't value you. She takes it for granted because it seems endless, because it seems expected. And that, my friend, is the very definition of being overlooked. Here's the controversial reality most men avoid. If you don't wake up and change your approach, the cycle continues. She won't miss you while you keep proving her comfort is your priority over your own value. She will never reflect because there's nothing to reflect on. She already knows what she can expect. That's why standing your ground is crucial. When you start living life with boundaries, purpose, and independence, she feels it immediately. There's a subtle shift in energy that you can't fake. She senses it, even if she doesn't say anything. And that's when missing you begins to form. Let's be honest, most men resist this because they fear loneliness or rejection. They fear that setting boundaries or prioritizing themselves will push her away. But here's the hard truth. If she truly values you, she won't leave because you stopped being endlessly available. On the contrary, she begins to realize what she has been taking for granted. She begins to question her own behavior, her own assumptions, and her own choices. And that realization is far more powerful than any gesture, any argument, or any apology could ever be. So men, this is your wake-up call. Stop giving without thought. Stop bending without boundaries. And stop allowing yourself to be overlooked. Self-respect isn't just a buzzword. It's the foundation for being unforgettable. Women start missing men not because they were ignored or manipulated, but because those men finally claimed their worth and refused to be invisible. That shift in behavior, in energy, and in presence is what triggers longing, reflection, and a deep, undeniable sense of absence. Here's the takeaway. The moment you stand your ground, honor your boundaries, and focus on your own life while still being present in the relationship on your terms, she begins to notice, and she begins to miss. It's subtle, it's psychological, and it's unavoidable when done correctly. Most men fail at this, not because women are unappreciative, but because they never wake up to the simple truth that value is not given. It's earned through self-respect. If you want her to miss you, it starts with you. Not with grand gestures, not with endless attention, and not with constant availability. It starts with realizing that being taken for granted is a reflection of what you allow and choosing to change that dynamic. Wake up, stand firm, and live with intention. That's when she finally starts realizing what she lost and why she should never take you for granted again. Here's the controversial statement most men will hate, but it's the truth. If a woman took you for granted, it wasn't entirely her fault. And it certainly wasn't random. It was a reflection of what you allowed her to take. Think about that for a second. I know it stings. I know it challenges every comforting story you've told yourself about love, relationships, and fairness. But the reality is that a man who doesn't value himself cannot expect to be valued by anyone else. And until you wake up to this, the same mistakes will keep repeating themselves. Most men live in denial. They say, "She doesn't appreciate me," or "I did everything for her and she left." But let me break this down. Doing everything doesn't mean anything if it comes without boundaries, standards, or self-respect. She notices what is scarce, what is earned, and what is real. And when a man constantly gives without holding his own worth, she may enjoy his presence. But she won't truly miss him because nothing about him was remarkable enough to create that void. the harsh truth. A man who allows himself to be taken for granted is complicit in it. This is why so many men are confused when a woman suddenly starts acting distant or seems to forget how much they mattered. It's not magic, it's psychology. She begins to feel the absence only because it was always there, waiting to be noticed. But you never made her aware of your value until it was too late. That's why understanding boundaries, priorities, and self-respect isn't optional, it's essential. Wake up. If you don't enforce your worth, no one else will. Here's the thing that makes most men uncomfortable. Women don't miss you because you did things for them. They miss you because of who you were when you respected yourself. Not the nice guy who said yes to everything. Not the man who dropped everything for convenience or comfort. The man she misses is the one who had a life, a presence, and a power she couldn't control or take for granted. And this is where men must pause and reflect. If you're giving endlessly without boundaries, if you're bending to her every expectation, if you're ignoring your own priorities to cater to hers, then you're setting yourself up to be invisible and eventually replaceable. Now, let's be brutally honest. Most men are afraid to hear this. They are afraid to confront the uncomfortable truth that they may have contributed to being overlooked in their relationships. But here's the wake-up call. You cannot change what you don't acknowledge. The moment you accept that respect, attention, and value are earned, starting with yourself, is the moment you reclaim control. That's when a woman starts realizing what she once took for granted. That's when she begins missing you. Not because of manipulation, not because of games, but because you finally stopped allowing yourself to be invisible. This is the point where I want you to reflect deeply. How many times have you compromised yourself to please her? How many moments of your own growth and happiness were sacrificed because you wanted her comfort more than your own value? Wake up. Because this pattern is what keeps men stuck in relationships where they are overlooked, undervalued, and taken for granted. The power to reverse this is in your hands, but it requires honesty, self-respect, and action. Here's the controversial challenge I want to leave you with. Stop waiting for her to miss you and start living in a way that she can't ignore. Show your value through your actions, your presence, and your self-respect. If she notices and misses you, that's natural. But it's not your responsibility to make her feel regret. Your responsibility is to stand firm, be intentional, and demand respect from yourself first. Everything else flows from that. I want to hear from you. I want to know your experiences, your struggles, and the moments where you realize she took you for granted. Drop a comment sharing your story, your feelings, or even the mistakes you've learned from. I read every single comment, and I make it a point to reach out to create a real connection with the people who are serious about understanding this. Your story matters. Your growth matters, and your experiences can help others wake up as well. So here's the final truth to take with you. Being missed is not about chasing, begging, or overgiving. It's about claiming your own value and refusing to allow anyone to take it lightly. Most men will never embrace this, and that's why so many women forget them until it's too late. But if you wake up, if you act with intention, and if you prioritize your self-respect, you'll never again be a man who is quietly overlooked. You'll be unforgettable.